The rain fell against the window like quiet applause for an ending no one wanted. Emma stood in the living room, her hands trembling as she held the medical report, the one that told her she'd never carry a child. Daniel's silence was louder than thunder. He stood across from her, eyes distant, already half gone. The clock ticked between them like a cruel reminder that love has its limits when tested by pain. Her voice cracked, asking if love wasn't supposed to be enough. He said nothing, only turned away, gathering the life they built into a suitcase of regret. The door closed softly, but its echo split her heart wide open. Outside, lightning lit the street in flashes of truth. Some endings aren't loud, they're just final. What do you hold on to when the one thing you dreamed of is gone? Can love survive when hope runs out? The next morning smelled of cold coffee and forgotten promises. Emma sat in silence, the sound of the refrigerator humming like an unwanted song. The house felt too big now, every room carrying Daniel's absence like a ghost. She stared at her wedding ring, twisting it slowly until her fingers turned pale. Somewhere between the pain and the quiet, a strange calm began to grow. She realized the world doesn't stop for heartbreak. It just learns to breathe differently. Days turned into fragments, dishes unwashed, curtains closed, messages unanswered. Emma drifted through her home like a shadow. But when she picked up her old paintbrush, the silence began to soften. Each stroke of color on the canvas felt like a small rebellion against despair. She didn't know what she was painting. Maybe loss, maybe freedom. But for the first time in weeks, she was creating something again. Claire arrived one afternoon with groceries and quiet concern. She didn't ask questions. She just hugged Emma until the silence cracked open. Over shared tea, Emma confessed everything. The report, the argument, the door closing. Claire listened, her eyes full of empathy, her voice steady. "You didn't lose everything," she said softly. "You just lost the part that wasn't meant to stay." That night, Emma stood by the window again. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean. She whispered a goodbye to the life that had ended, and a promise to the one still waiting to begin. The moonlight caught her reflection, fragile yet unbroken. For the first time since he left, she felt something stir inside her. Not joy, not yet, but the faint, trembling outline of hope. The days blurred into a rhythm of quiet survival. Emma started working at the community center again, her steps hesitant at first, as if walking through memories too heavy to forget. Children's laughter echoed through the hallways, a sound both beautiful and cruel. But as she began setting up her art class, arranging brushes and small jars of paint, something inside her softened. Each canvas waiting to be touched by color felt like a small beginning, a reason to breathe again. The art class became her refuge. She taught the children to draw skies bigger than their fears and trees, stronger than their sadness. Sometimes she'd catch herself smiling. Real smiles that surprised her. One afternoon, a little girl with missing front teeth handed Emma a drawing of a family. "It's you," she said. "You look happy." Emma stared at the crayon lines and felt her chest ache. Maybe happiness wasn't gone. Maybe it was just waiting for her to notice it again. At night, Emma returned to her quiet apartment. The kind of quiet that doesn't hurt anymore, but still feels too big. She'd light a candle and stare at the small collection of children's paintings she'd begun pinning to the wall. They were her reminders, proof that beauty could come from brokenness. And though she didn't say it aloud, she started to believe that maybe she could still be someone's light. Even if she could never be someone's mother. Claire called often now, checking in between her own busy life. "You sound different," she said one evening. "Lighter?" Emma smiled faintly, brushing stray paint from her hands. "Maybe I am," she whispered. "Maybe I'm learning how to breathe again." That night she sat by the window, sketchbook open, drawing the first thing that came to her mind. A small hand reaching for a larger one. The next morning, the community center buzzed with new energy. A hospital volunteer program had asked Emma to teach a small art session for children in recovery. She hesitated, heart fluttering between fear and curiosity. Something about it felt different, important. She didn't know it yet, but this was the road that would lead her to the miracle she'd been denied. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and hope, two things that never seemed to belong together. Emma walked the narrow corridor with a box of paints clutched to her chest, her pulse quickening as she approached the children's ward. Inside, small beds lined the room, each holding a story too heavy for its tiny owner. But at the far end, near the window where sunlight pooled like gold, sat a little girl quietly sketching with a broken crayon. When Emma smiled at her, the child smiled back, as if she had been waiting. It wasn't loud. It wasn't grand. Just a quiet click of fate, the kind that changes everything. "Do you like to draw?" Emma asked softly. Lily nodded, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I draw happy things," she said, "because sad ones make me tired." Emma smiled, kneeling beside her. They painted together for an hour. Flowers, clouds, and faces that almost looked like family. When Lily laughed, it sounded like sunlight through rain. And for the first time in years, Emma felt something she thought she'd lost. The quiet rhythm of love, being born again, one color at a time. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself visiting more often. Lily's bed was soon covered in sketches. Bright suns, messy hearts, stick figures holding hands. The nurses said Lily talked about Emma all the time. One afternoon, as Emma packed up, Lily asked quietly, "Will you come back tomorrow?" Emma paused, her chest tightening in the sweetest ache. "I will," she whispered. "I promise." It was the easiest promise she had ever made, and the hardest she would ever keep. One evening, Emma met Dr. Rowan Miller, the pediatric doctor, overseeing Lily's care. His voice carried both strength and kindness as he explained Lily's condition. A chronic illness that required long treatments but hadn't stolen her spirit. "She's a fighter," he said. Emma smiled, watching Lily paint quietly nearby. "She's more than that," she replied softly. "She's light." Dr. Miller looked at Emma then, really looked, and saw in her the same unspoken courage he'd seen in Lily. Before leaving that night, Emma paused by Lily's bedside. The little girl was asleep, her small hand still clutching the crayon. Emma brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, her heart whispering words her lips couldn't say. Outside, the city lights blurred into a soft dream. She didn't know it yet, but this child had already changed her life, not with grand gestures, but with simple, unguarded love. And somewhere deep within, Emma felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Destiny. Emma started visiting every day. Sometimes they painted. Sometimes they just talked. Lily would ask questions about everything. Why clouds moved, why flowers died, why people left. Emma answered gently, her words slow and soft, afraid to break the fragile trust between them. One morning, Lily reached for her hand and said, "When I grow up, I want to be like you." The words hit like sunlight after years of rain. Emma smiled through tears she couldn't hide. Maybe love didn't need to be born. Maybe it could simply be found. When Lily was discharged weeks later, the hospital felt strangely empty. Dr. Miller thanked Emma for her kindness, but his tone carried something deeper. Gratitude for what she'd given that child. Emma hesitated before leaving, her eyes lingering on Lily's empty bed. She didn't know where the little girl was going, only that a piece of her heart was going too. Outside, the world was bright, yet Emma felt the sting of a quiet loss. The kind that only comes when love has truly begun. Weeks passed, but Emma couldn't forget her. Every child's laughter at the community center echoed with Lily's voice. One evening, she received a call from the hospital. Lily had been moved to a foster home nearby, still recovering. The words pulled Emma out of the half-life she'd been living. That night, she drove through soft rain, following an address written on a folded piece of paper, her heart pounding like it had finally found its direction. The foster home was small and warm, filled with the sound of children's voices. When Lily saw her, she ran forward without hesitation, arms wide, as if no time had passed at all. Emma knelt, holding her tightly, feeling the small heartbeat against her chest. "You came back," Lily whispered. "I told them you would." And in that moment, Emma understood what fate had been trying to tell her all along. Some connections are written long before we meet. Months later, the adoption papers were signed. The process was long, filled with forms, interviews, and anxious waiting, but love doesn't measure time. The day it became official, Emma brought Lily home. Not just to a house, but to a life rebuilt from ashes. They painted the walls together, splashing colors and laughter across every corner. That night, as they lay under the same blanket, Lily whispered, "Now we're a family." Emma smiled through quiet tears, whispering back, "We always were." Daniel's world had become a picture frame. Beautiful, still, and painfully empty. The woman he remarried filled their home with things, not warmth. He had the life he thought he wanted. The job, the house, the silence that came with it. One afternoon, while driving through town, he stopped at a red light and saw something that made the air leave his lungs. Across the street, Emma stood holding the hand of a little girl, both laughing under the late sun. For a moment, time fractured. The woman he'd broken was glowing. And beside her, the impossible, a child. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The image replayed endlessly. Emma's laughter, the child's hand in hers. He told himself it was coincidence, that she was just teaching again, helping someone else. But the thought clawed at him until curiosity won. A few days later, he found himself standing outside the community center, watching her through the glass. She looked different, lighter, alive. Lily ran to her with a painting, and Emma bent down to kiss the child's hair. Daniel's heart cracked quietly, realizing too late that he had traded love for emptiness. He finally gathered the courage to approach her one evening as she locked up the center. "Emma," he said softly, almost uncertain it was his voice. She turned, startled at first, then calm, like seeing a ghost you've already forgiven. They stood in silence, the years stretching between them like a river. "You look happy," he said. "I am," she replied. No bitterness, no blame, just truth. He wanted to ask about the child, but something in her eyes told him not to. Some answers aren't meant for those who left. Later, Daniel sat in his car, staring at the empty passenger seat. His reflection in the window looked older, heavier. He remembered the day he left her. The quiet sob that chased him down the hall. The look in her eyes that he could never erase. He thought he was escaping failure. Instead, he had walked away from Grace. Now, watching Emma's life bloom without him, he finally saw what real strength looked like, not in having everything, but in rebuilding after everything breaks. The next morning, Daniel returned to the community center and found Emma in the garden with Lily. She was showing the little girl how to plant flowers, her laughter mingling with the child's. He stood there quietly, unseen, realizing that the life he once dreamed of, the warmth, the love, the family, had found its way back to her without him. In that moment, he understood what fate truly was. Not punishment, but revelation. Some losses aren't meant to be recovered. They're meant to be lessons you live with forever. It started with a cough. Small, harmless, ordinary. But soon, Lily grew tired, her laughter softer, her colors fading. Emma sat by her side every night, fear blooming quietly in her chest. At the hospital, Dr. Rowan explained that Lily's illness had returned, stronger this time. Emma nodded, holding her hand, refusing to cry in front of her. She'd promised Lily she'd never leave her side, and promises meant everything now. As machines hummed and lights blinked, Emma whispered prayers into the sterile air, begging fate not to take her miracle away. Word of Lily's illness reached Daniel unexpectedly. A mutual friend, a whisper, a name that shattered his quiet routine. He didn't think. He just drove. When he arrived at the hospital, he saw Emma through the glass, her head bowed beside the child's bed, time folded in on itself. This was the woman he'd broken, now strong enough to hold another life together with nothing but faith. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't see what he'd lost. He saw what he'd destroyed. Emma looked up to find Daniel standing at the door. For a long moment, neither spoke. The years of silence between them seemed to hum louder than the machines. "I heard," he said softly. She only nodded. He stepped closer, hesitant, eyes falling on Lily. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She's my daughter," Emma replied, not with bitterness but truth. Something in her voice silenced him. He offered to help, to stay, to do anything. Emma simply said, "Then pray for her." Days passed in blurred hours of worry and waiting. Daniel stayed, bringing coffee, silent company, and the kind of help that required no words. Sometimes he'd sit outside Lily's room just to hear her breathe. Emma saw him differently now. Not as the man who left, but as one learning what love truly costs. One evening, she found him asleep in a chair, a blanket over his shoulders, Lily's drawing folded in his hand. And for the first time, she didn't feel anger, only quiet forgiveness. The night before Lily's surgery, Emma sat beside her, holding her tiny hand in both of hers. Daniel stood by the window, silent. "Do you believe in miracles?" Lily asked weakly. Emma's throat tightened. "I do," she said, "because I found you." When the nurse came to take Lily to the operating room, Emma and Daniel followed side by side, two broken hearts bound by the same prayer. For once, their silence wasn't heavy. It was sacred. The surgery felt endless. Hours passed like lifetimes. Emma sat with her fingers intertwined, whispering prayers into the cold air of the waiting room. Daniel sat across from her, silent, his eyes fixed on the floor. When Dr. Rowan finally appeared, his smile said everything before his words did. "She's going to be okay," he said softly. Emma exhaled a breath. She didn't know she'd been holding, tears spilling freely now. Daniel closed his eyes, shoulders shaking, not just in relief, but in redemption. Some miracles come quietly, wrapped in the stillness after fear. When Lily opened her eyes, Emma was already there, her hand resting over the child's heart. Lily blinked slowly, a faint smile forming. "Did I make it?" she whispered. Emma laughed softly through tears. "You did, sweetheart." Daniel stood in the doorway, watching the two of them. This small, perfect universe that no longer needed him, yet somehow welcomed his presence. For the first time, he didn't envy what he saw. He was simply thankful it existed. Days later, Lily was strong enough to go home. The hospital staff waved as she left, a tiny hand wrapped around Emma's. Outside, Daniel walked beside them but kept his distance. At the car, he paused. "Thank you," he said quietly. Emma met his eyes, not with anger, not even sadness, just a soft, tired understanding. "For what?" she asked. "For being stronger than I ever was," he replied. Then he turned, walking away as the wind carried the faintest echo of goodbye. At home, the walls were alive again with color and laughter. Lily ran from room to room, her joy filling every quiet corner. Emma watched her, smiling softly, feeling the fullness of everything she had prayed for. Later that night, she stood by the window, the city lights glowing below, and whispered a simple thank you. Not to anyone in particular, but to the unseen hand that had led her here. For every tear, every heartbreak, and every goodbye, she had been brought to this, a life remade through love. At sunrise, Emma and Lily walked hand in hand through the park. The air was cool, the sky painted with pink and gold. Lily looked up and asked, "Mom, do you think people can change?" Emma smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Yes, she said softly. Sometimes we have to lose everything to find what really matters. In the distance, Daniel watched from afar, his hands in his pockets, a faint smile breaking through. Some stories don't end with revenge or regret. They end with peace.